All right. Let's see, I am not muted. Um, Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Paterzo. I'm an architect, professor of architecture at MassArt. Really happy to be talking about our new interior design certificate program tonight. Couple quick things about where this certificate program fits into the context of the college before I go through the slides. By the way, there's about 15 slides. So it's not a super long info session. But MassArt does have a design department. We're an art college in Boston, and we've had an architecture department for a little over 50 years. We kind of fly under the radar a little bit, but we've been going steady and strong for a while. We have an undergraduate degree in architecture and a master's of architecture, which is an accredited degree for architects. So folks who come through this program can go on and get their license and practice as architects. I'm mentioning that because the interior design certificate program is part of the context of the larger design community at MassArt. And although it's a totally online program, it's very connected to our curriculum and our community, our design community. So yeah, so that's kind of the overall context. It's through our continuing ed program. So and it's designed so that you could take one course or take all the courses in a sequence, at the end of which, excuse me, you'll receive a certificate. Maybe the next, oh, I'm doing the slides. There we go. All right. So broadly, you could read this while I'm sort of hitting the highlights of this paragraph, but we've been working for the past year and a half to put this certificate together. I've been working with design professionals, interior designers, administrators, and folks who develop curriculum, and drawing on my own experience to put this set of courses together. And it really comes down to three legs of the stool. The historical influences that impact our built environment, how we come up with concepts to actually start a design for an interior space, and then how do we make those ideas come to reality, the practical application from idea to moving toward presentations that other people could read and understand and implement. This slide talk has a little bit of a hidden agenda as well. The historical influences, I feel like context is so important for interior design that I have snuck in a few historical slides throughout this talk. And I'll say that they're important because interior design wasn't it came about as a profession, as a discipline, a little bit after architecture. And I think it's really interesting at the point in time when it became its own profession and the people who shaped that. So you'll see a few slides about that. And as far as concept development, when people hear that designs are concept driven, I want to just say now, before we even get too far into the slides, that a concept could be a remote idea, or it could be a simple concept for a space, like maximizing a view, or even thinking about acoustics. It doesn't have to be a completely remote concept, but it can be. And then, of course, the practical application is something that all designers have to deal with. At some point, your ideas have to become real. They have to become built, implemented, and it takes a team to do that. So as we go through the courses and kind of the big picture view of our program, we might talk about these three areas in different ways. Before I go on to the next slide, I will mention that this talks about hands-on design in each course. At MassArt, if you know anything about the college, we really center learning on learning through making. And while this is an online program, we have designed each course so that students make something and engage with the design process on each topic. So we're carrying that ethos into this new program. All right, there we go. So before I hit the bullet points, I will just mention Eileen Gray. So starting with history and context, putting interior design in a context, so important. Underrepresented groups of people, have been contributing to art design throughout time. And when I was learning about architecture and interior design, the common language was that we needed to encourage more women to become designers and engage in the design process. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll see that women have always been trailblazing in the area of interior design and architecture and civil engineering. So Eileen Gray, this stool, I chose this image to start with because I think some people might recognize this side table. And Eileen Gray's name would be a household name, I believe, if she had been a male living in the time that she did, because her contemporaries were Frank Lloyd Wright, or Corbusier, Walter Gropius. You may or may not be familiar with these folks, but a lot of people are. Eileen Gray's work influenced their work. And it really wasn't until the 80s when books were republished with her name. And this table in particular was put back into production. And this table was designed, I believe, in 1927. It looks really contemporary. She was ahead of her time. Anyway, that's my side note on history that I wanted to touch on. We looked at this certificate program for people who want to explore a career change. Like it could be a completely different career from what you're doing now, because we're not requiring folks come to the certificate with foundational skills like drawing or software knowledge that is typical in the profession. So it's open to people who are looking to change their career, but it's also for people who are in related fields who maybe want to understand a little more about interior design. Folks may be thinking about going to get an internship or an entry-level job in interior design. This certificate program would give a foundational structure for folks who want to start that pathway in a design office. I'll talk about that in detail in further slides. And it's also designed for people who maybe just have a project they want to do. It could be their own house or their office, or they've got a friend who they want to help on an interior design project, and they just want to build basic design skills, language, and kind of understand how to put together a scope for a project. Let's see. Also, this is kind of important, this idea of building a professional network. I'm really happy that the certificate program is a series of courses where it's going to build a group of people who will move through the courses together. I would say that learning and teaching it's such a community activity. And if you take a continuing ed class, just a one-off class, you are becoming part of a community, whether it's online or in person. The people in the class and the faculty who are teaching the class is your community for that length of time that you're in the class. And you learn from them, because any creative endeavor requires collaboration. If you come through a degree program, you're with your friends and your cohort for maybe a couple of years, and you get to know people who you can rely on once you get out into the field. And designers really do need that network. So our certificate programs, all of them, are really keep that in mind as we set up our courses. So if you're thinking about a professional network, it's really a creative network, it's a collaborative network, it's a support network of folks who, once you come through the set of courses, you're very likely to keep in touch with and help support each other as you move into whatever you want to do next with your certificate. So speaking of community, one of the highlights of putting together this certificate is that I get to call on my colleagues to see if they'd like to teach in the program. And Liz Hidalgo and Kelly Soren are two faculty that I just wanted to mention because they're teaching in the program. We started a course this fall, the first design course, the Intro to Design. We ran that as kind of an independent course this fall. I'll talk more about why we did that when I get to the course listings. And Liz is teaching that now. Both Liz and Kelly are terrific designers, great communicators, very personable, and they really balance out their skills. So folks coming through the program will have a chance to work with Liz, who works with corporate interiors, large institutional buildings, understands complex projects and all the stakeholders involved and how to manage that, along with the codes and latest trends and the sustainability requirements of commercial design. And Kelly is very, very talented with residential design, which is super challenging. It's a very specific discipline. So as our students move through the program, they'll have a chance to work with professionals kind of at both ends of the spectrum in terms of scale of projects. Kelly right now just finished designing a collection of furniture out of marble. This is just beautiful, very simple, beautiful marble furniture that is, I think it's being shown in a gallery right now. So these are the highlights for the structure of the program. We learned a lot during the pandemic that using Zoom and video conferencing, a lot can get done. And as we at MassArt believe in accessible education, and our current plan, our 10-year strategic plan that we're really deeply committed to, is centered on accessible education, making our resources available to as many people as possible. We decided to make our certificate program fully online and in the evening so that people don't have to commute and don't have to work it into their work schedule if they're working a typical 9-to-5 workday. As I mentioned, our courses are all taught by professionals in the field of architecture and interior design. Each person who will be teaching the courses will have areas of specialty that complement each other. We really are focused on portfolio. Now, portfolio you could think of as just a collection of images and projects that somebody has done that they might bring to an interview or email as a digital document. But the way we're looking at portfolio in the certificate program is that it's really a tool to really reflect on what you're doing. And the assessment for the program, it's a pass, no credit style of course, but the portfolio is the place where you'll really be able to see your progress and measure your development and reflect on what projects you really liked, and that might help you find a direction for the kinds of jobs you want. And like I said earlier, each course, even our professional practice course, is designed so that you have something to add to your portfolio each time you take a course. And we walk people through the portfolio making process. The courses, there's 8 of them in the sequence. There's 7 weeks, and if you complete all of them, you get a certificate. One note about, actually, this will be in the next slide, I think. Yes, there we go. I was going to talk about sequence, but that's here. All right, so like I mentioned, we ran a course this fall, which is called Design Studio 1, and you can see that's the intro course, and Liz is teaching that right now. I had a chance to visit the class a few weeks ago, and they're working away, and they seem to know each other well, and the critique went really well, and there's some very interesting work coming out of that class. And that class really is, well, let me back up and say, if you were taking a degree in interior design, you would not start with Design Studio 1, most likely. You would start with a foundation course that looks at basic universal design principles, like how do you use symmetry, or what is rhythm in a space? How do you work with a datum or some constant against a variable in a space? These are things that we experience as people in the built environment all the time. In a degree sequence, you would probably take a class that just looks at those things in the abstract. But because this is a very condensed curriculum, we are starting with those concepts right while you design a project. So I like to think of it as, if we were studying writing, we might take a semester or a year and do some reading and look at paragraph structure and figure out grammar and all of that. And then eventually apply that to an idea of our own and write an essay. And in this case, we're just starting to write. We're writing that essay, we're designing that interior space, and your faculty are helping you bring those basic concepts that all designers need to know to your work. So you might visually take a chance and start designing something, and then faculty will notice some of these basic design principles in your work and then talk about them that way. It's a more direct way of getting at kind of some of the important principles in design. And you're not expected to know anything. We just sort of walk you through how to get going with the design in that first studio. And then the course that you would be taking along with that studio is Survey of Contemporary Design, and that's a contemporary history of interior design. And you could see from a few of the slides that the certificate program is rooted in putting interior design in the context of architecture, interior design, furniture design, civil engineering, landscape design. Interior design is an important discipline that lives in a family of disciplines that all deal with the built environment. And the Survey of Contemporary Design uncovers that for students. Now, it is a history class, but because we're committed to making sure our students leave the certificate program with a robust portfolio, as robust as the portfolio can be for a short certificate program, in this class, students will be designing something in response to some of the content in the course. So if it's a history class, you might look at, say, Eileen Gray or Walter Gropius or others, and analyze a piece of furniture or an interior space, and then do a small design project that responds to the principles that are in that work. And it might be that you're reacting against it and doing something opposite of it, or that you're reinterpreting it for a contemporary moment in time. So that's how we're dealing with the history while still helping students build a portfolio. And then after that, students will take Design Studio 2 with Kelly. And that is a more complex interior design project. So what'll happen in all of your interior design sequences, except for the last one, which I'll talk about, the faculty will come with a project. You'll get photographs, floor plans, a design wish list, which is called a design brief. And then you as a student have to start to dig into that and come up with ideas and reinterpret the space and propose how you would change space based on the design directive. When you get to Design Studio 2, it's going to be more complicated than Design Studio 1 because you will have learned in Design Studio 1 some of the basics like scale and lighting, a little bit of lighting, and how to coordinate materials. But in Design Studio 2, you'll be doing all of that, plus some basic code stuff, life safety, and a little more of the sustainability features or characteristics of interior design. So that's that studio. And then while you're taking that, there's a course called Construction Documents. And we all felt that this was a really important course for interior designers to understand. Now, interior designers don't typically create construction documents, but we get construction documents, right? If we're gonna redesign a space or add to a space, interior designers need to understand how to read construction documents and respond to them. I have a few extra slides in here for a few of these courses, but not all of them. But I will say, just personally, as you know, in my practice, I worked with a lot of interior designers where sometimes I provided the interior design services, but many times interior designers would team up with me so that I could help them understand construction documents and integrate their work into construction documents. And my hope is that when our students come through the certificate program, they'll be able to do that on their own through this course. And the design piece of this is once you analyze a set of construction documents, understand all the terms, you'll be proposing a small intervention into that design, and then you'll understand what the implications are based on the technical information. So here's a slide of a basic set of floor plans with lots of extra lines on them. You know, they get more complicated than this, but this is a sort of a typical thing that you might analyze in that course. And then there'd be a small design directive where you'd get to change something about the plan and add things to it. And then your faculty will help you understand how you might talk to a contractor about that, or what the implications are for an interior designer when interpreting and proposing changes to construction documents. It's part of the profession, and it's pretty exciting and great, but it's definitely a good skill to know, because if you don't, you'll have to hire someone to do it for you. So our professional practice course is really aimed to help students and folks entering the field of interior design understand how the business works. And interior designers and architects and civil engineers and landscape architects and all of us, we all have different business models. Interior designers have a very interesting business model, and there's a wide range of ways that interior designers put together their living. So in this course, you'll go through all of the different ways interior designers set up a practice, figure out billing, provide services. Like, for example, you might, if some of you on this call might know a whole lot about it, which is fine. But if you don't know anything about interior design, you might just assume that you put out a proposal, say, yep, I'll redesign this thing for you for some, fixed amount of money. And that's the end of the story. There's sirens going by. I hope nobody can hear them through the, but really interior designers often they could bill hourly, they could buy things at designer prices and mark them up to retail. They could actually provide maintenance services for the stuff they install. They can maintain warranties, schedule service on the stuff that they've provided as part of their contract. So it's a potentially very long relationship with the client. And we'll look at that. We'll look at all of the organizations that the professional organizations in interior design that help regulate the discipline as well. And this is the course where you'll really get into your portfolio development. So everybody who teaches in this certificate program has to put together a portfolio, has to maintain a portfolio, modify it. Sometimes we're modifying our portfolios per job or per proposal. So at this point in time, a big part of this course is how do you organize yourself to put together a portfolio that will help you do the next thing that is on your list of goals. And then another course that's in the sequence that I kind of jumped through as I was going through that list, but the custom fabrication studio. Interior designers do a lot of designing and they do a lot for clients. It really does go beyond choosing and curating furniture and finishes and lighting. Often there's a point in a design process where you can't find something, so you have to design it. And another part of my practice was to take sketches that interior designers would bring me, and then I would make those sketches into technical drawings so that they could be built. They could be bid on and then built, and there's many, many steps involved in all of that. And I know interior designers who will make a rough sketch and send it to a fabricator because they've got a really good relationship with a fabricator. But that's leaving a lot to chance. So this course really examines what it means to do something custom for a project. So the sketch I'm showing you is Eric Mendelson, architect, artist, interior designer, furniture designer. These look like initial sketches, initial ideas. This is where it all starts. But where it ends is something that looks more like that construction document that I showed a few slides back. And this course takes designers through that process from getting, well, a drawing like this which is really schematic. It's kind of asking questions. Could it look like this? Could it have this form? To a drawing that's providing concrete answers and actually potentially becomes part of a contract with a mill worker. So this will be, I think, a good class for people, and you shouldn't feel overwhelmed or nervous about this class if you don't have construction experience, because it's a step-by-step. And like I said, many interior designers take things as far as they can and then maybe hire somebody to finish the drawings. The hope is that when you come through this program, you'll be able to get your drawings much, much further. So you end up with the product that you want. So we're also doing a lighting lab, and that's its own standalone course. I'm going to take a slight detour and talk about history again for a minute. I love this slide so much because this is Carlos Scarpa. He was an architect and interior designer, practiced in Venice through the late 70s. And what I love about this image is that it reminds us that light is a medium. It's almost like a material that designers, interior designers, architects have and really need to consider. Now, he practiced in Venice, and Venice is built with bricks and stone. And usually when you want natural light in a brick or stone building, you poke a hole in it, and it's a little framed window. And what he did was, instead of having these little framed rectangles of light, he liked to find ways to light corners. So where you wouldn't expect light to come in, he was finding ways to let light in. And so he would remove corners of these historic buildings when he was doing renovations. And suddenly a very closed room with a framed view out became a little more continuous with the light from outside. So he's using light to create a continuity from outside to inside without even being concerned about the view. So I love this slide because it reminds me to think about light before I think about windows. So if you're thinking about lamps, maybe think about light before you think about what lamp or lighting you're looking to choose. And the lighting lab is going to help students think about light in that way. First, like, how do you want to organize the light to support your design in the best possible way? And we're also going to be using some software that will be able to model different light scenarios in your designs. And it's very simple software. I've already tested it out, but the person who's teaching this course was a lighting designer for a long time before moved into interiors. So we'll be able to actually model light in your work digitally and then test it that way. So you'll end up with portfolio work that is specific around lighting in a studio project. Right? Let's see. So here's our learning outcomes. You could read the bullet points for yourself, but I'll go over them. You know, this idea of developing a proficiency, I'm a little hesitant to use the word proficiency, but I do think you will become proficient in the language of interior design. I also will say that artists and designers, I guess most professions, but as an architect and interior designer, the learning is constant and the craft evolution is constant. So even though you might feel like you're just starting out, you should leave the certificate program prepared and with some proficiency around how to organize the space, how to choose materials, where interior design sits in the context of other design disciplines, also over time. And really, you know, these bullet points you could read for yourself, but the last two, oops, there we go. The last two plus the sustainability, integration, and collaboration and communication are two things that I think are unique to the way that we've organized our certificate program. And we've modeled it after some of the other certificate programs that have been running for a while and have really been able to build community. So the sustainability integration is a thread that runs through each course. So I didn't talk about it much, but I wanted to highlight it here because as designers, we are stewards of the environment, of the built environment, the natural environment. So if you're interested in sustainability and environmental stewardship and being able to choose materials not only for their qualities or aesthetic qualities, but also for their footprint or their ecological footprint, that will be a constant throughout the set of courses. Critical thinking and problem solving, I should have put that in green as well, because we evaluate through critique. And critique, if you're not familiar with critique, it means you put your work up and then people talk about it. And it's really a good way to get direct feedback on what you're doing. And you'll have peer critiques, and you'll have obviously from faculty and then guests who will come toward the end of the semester and look at your work. You know, it can be a little unnerving if you haven't gone through the critique process before, but at MassArt, we really have a strong philosophy around supportive critique where you know, we're really trying to understand the intentions of what students are doing, and then we link those intentions to, is it evident in the work, and how could we talk about them through the basic design grammar of interior design and architecture. Then, of course, the collaboration and communication, so important. You know, collaboration, every designer, probably everybody in every profession has to collaborate, but you can't get anything done as a designer if you're not collaborating. You know, as I was mentioning earlier, if you are making a sketch and you want to have a custom piece of furniture built for a project, well, you're not going to source the wood and mill it and build the piece of furniture. You know, I mean, you've got to collaborate with your client, the fabricators, the material sourcing. I have found over the years, what makes collaboration really exciting is if you could talk about your design goals with everybody along the way. So if I'm talking with a contractor and I want to detail a certain way, if I talk about what the end result, like what my goal is, then they understand, they'll help me get there. So collaborating at all different points is super important. Anyway, going on about collaboration a little much. This is probably what you really want to see. So there's another Eileen Gray. She did these beautiful screens that are amazing, and she really got into lacquer work as well. This is one of our screens. So here's the tuition and fees. We've tried our best to make this as affordable as possible because accessibility was one of the driving factors for putting together these certificate programs. So there it is. I don't need to talk about that anymore, I don't think. All right. So coming back to accessibility, this idea that all levels are welcome, there's no application, it's open. In our architecture program, in the 2-degree programs, we mix some of our courses with beginning students and advanced students. We call it vertical learning. And my hope is that we'll have that happen here. I hope that people in design, in one field of design who are thinking about interior design, or maybe somebody who's in the medical field who wants to take a design class, people all different skill levels and backgrounds come together. It makes for a very rich learning environment. And I really like the courses where I've got a range of folks who are coming from different backgrounds because they help each other immediately. And the perspectives and the backgrounds that bring to the design process make it more enjoyable and a richer experience for everybody. So this all levels welcome is not just for the certificate program, it actually ties into our philosophy of teaching at MassArt and certainly within the architecture department. I think that might be it. Yes, that is it. And now you could submit questions. I
Thank
went
you.
a little quickly, but I think I covered everything.